sponsored by JMR Rentals, professional digital cinema and broadcast rentals in Brooklyn, New York. To find out more, visit their website, jmrny.com. Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend, where we go behind the scenes and talk to the creators of independent entertainment. I'm Jason Godbey, and joining me via Zoom today, she is the editor-in-chief of fanbolt.com, Miss Emma Loggins. Welcome, Emma.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, all the way from south of the border in Georgia, where currently a dramatic hand recount is happening.
Yep.
Of the presidential election, which I'm sure you didn't pay attention to, know nothing about.
Nothing about it. Was only my whole weekend, but
oh my God, it's I'm glad to do this to get my mind off of everything that's happening. But we're going to talk about real important issues here today. We're going to talk about content. We're going to talk about the entertainment industry, but first, we're going to talk to you about you. So how did you kind of get into this whole mess and media content creation? What is your origin story, so to speak?
Origin story. Well, I'm going to take you back to 1998. I was in 8th grade, and I started doing web design and making like GeoCity sites way back in the day. And I was kind of your quintessential nerd in school, have kind of the quintessential sad story of like, didn't really have friends, got picked on. So I was looking for other outlets to kind of explore things that I loved, specifically film and television, because it's always been a love of mine. And I always loved escaping into them. So kind of started learning how to do web design. And then in 2002, I was a senior in high school and launched FanBolt. And now that's more than 18 years ago at this point. But it started out as a message board community, and then I kind of started building it out from there. I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, born and raised here, never left. And it seemed but my love for the entertainment industry was kind of in such an interesting place because I wasn't in New York or LA. So I didn't really see it as anything more than a hobby. And then in 2004, the creator of the OC apparently saw one of my sites. I had like a number of different TV show sites that all fed into FanBolt, just to bring in different fandoms. And the OC was one of those. And Warner Brothers reached out and asked me to run a fan club website that they were launching. And so I did that until the series ended in 2007. And the rest is kind of just history. I got my bachelor's and master's degree while I was doing all of this. And I realized that I could actually, it's not the only thing I do. I won't say I make a sole living at it, but I was able to turn it into a business. And that's kind of become a big kind of driver of everything I do. I do a lot of work in the entertainment industry on the marketing side as well. That kind of all ties back into FanBolt. A lot of kind of influencer marketing work as well. A lot of design and kind of video work. So it all ties back into that and into fan and geek culture.
With FanBolt, so you said it's evolved at this point. You used to do like fan sites, but how would you describe it now? Is it a blog? Is it a magazine? How would you describe it?
I kind of walk the fine line between like news site and blog, depending on who I'm talking to and kind of how I need to position something. So it's a little bit of both. We do feed into Google News. So there is a news component of it. And then I do have my own kind of like editor's blog on the site where all of my movie reviews get posted to that, and kind of any kind of editorial style pieces get posted to that. But yeah, today it did really start as a message board community. It had fan sites that fed into it that really, in my play on that, it was kind of the early days of Google. So I tried to create really optimized content and kind of landing pages or sub-sites, if you will, around different very active fan cultures online at the time to kind of all feed into the forums. That was all in the days before social media. So it was, Facebook, I believe launched in 2003, and it was only for, kids that had certain college email addresses that could sign up initially. Twitter didn't come along until a few years later. So message board culture was really rich at the time. Like that's where you went to like nerd out and geek out about what you watched. And then as the years kind of evolved and passed, that started to take place more on social media, and you almost saw like the death of message board culture. But then in the more recent times, that's really kind of made a comeback. I think there's been a lot of kind of burnout on social media, a lot of toxicity on social media. So people have been looking for, where are the places that they can find their people, online? Where can they find, people that they can engage with and have, the same kind of like just geeking out and same amount of passion over what they do. So all of that being said, Fanbolt today really is about geek culture and geek lifestyle. And I define geek culture as being passionate about something. It can really be about anything. You can be passionate about films, TVs, or TV shows, certain genres, certain comic books, cooking, travel, technology. You can be a geek of anything. It's really just that passion and that enthusiasm. And that's what Fanbolt embodies today in 2020.
So you're creating, because people talk about geek culture, and people probably were saying that before geek culture became the culture, because I remember 90s comic book movies. And I remember, kind of the evolution of that. Now comic book movies have saturated the marketplace where I'm personally happy to go to a movie that isn't a comic book movie just for a change. But you are creating content, especially in your space, in a very saturated marketplace. So how are you kind of getting your particular message out, and how is there still a demand for your type of content, and how are you kind of meeting that demand?
It's a really interesting topic because, like you said, it is very saturated. There's a million sites doing, a review on the latest film. And as soon as embargo breaks, you've got all of those sites putting up a review of something. So how are you competitive in that landscape? It's near impossible to be from an SEO perspective. So my angle on that has always been, what's unique about what I do is my voice. That's really the only thing that's unique about Fanbolt outside of just the culture of the readers that feel the same way I do about the content. It's a place of positivity. If you want to bash a movie, Fanbolt is not the place to come and do it. Fanbolt is the place to geek out. You sign on and you geek out. So when it comes to the reviews, it really is kind of my take on it and my voice. And, I try to be very active on all different types of social media, whether it's, Twitter, Instagram, or stories on Instagram, Facebook, whatever it might be, and really trying to have kind of a more personal relationship with some of my readers on the site. Because at the end of the day, that's what differentiates me from, the comicbook.coms of the world, where they have way more money than I do to put behind getting their brand out there and advertising, and a much larger staff than I have. I have a handful of, volunteer writers. So it's really just realizing that it's your voice is what makes movie reviews or TV reviews or writing about this sort of culture that's become mainstream now. It really is geek culture is mainstream culture. Comic book culture is mainstream at this point. There's certainly indie, projects out there, but there's so much content, and the only way you can really differentiate yourself is just your own voice.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a couple of things I can touch upon when you say this. So first, remind me of last year, when we could still go to places and do things, I went to New York Comic Con and I was there with Jordan Gelber, who you know, and we did some interviews and stuff together. I shot some stuff with her, and I remember, like, I can't remember, it was the second or third day I was there, and you know, I'm coming from, I'm not a, I like that stuff, but I'm not a con person. Like, there's just way too many people there for me. I remember saying to a group of people that was around that were all like in the press room, and I said, you know, listen, I'm not going to say anything to anybody. It'll never leave this table, but are we getting tired of this stuff? Like, have we just reached a point of saturation? And everybody looked at me and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, they're like, that's crazy. You know, no, of course not. And I think it was from a perspective of people who would, some of the, you know, especially some of the people maybe more my age, were like, I've been waiting my whole life to see this stuff on screen. And now that I can finally have it, I can't get enough of it. With things the way they're happening now, do you feel like, even in the span of, like, because people going to the movies now is like, I'm going to go see the next Avengers picture. I'm going to go see Marvel Universe. I'm going to see DC. I'm going to see one of these big blockbuster type movies. I know there's like 6 Avatars ready to come out, but they can't make those movies a lot now in this environment. A lot of them are getting held back because they need that box office just to break even. You know, like a movie like, you know, Justice League had to make like $1 billion just to, you know, make a profit. If it's a small indie film, we don't need that, you know, and we can make films with smaller crews. We can make it run and gun. We can make it, you know, fast. And because of the technology, we can actually make it something of quality. But my question has been, whether the circumstance or not, is there a market for those movies now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, even though there are some films that are coming out in theater now, it's people are looking for things to watch at home. And if movies aren't also coming out, you know, on demand at the same time that they're coming out in the theaters, people are probably going to wait until they can watch them in their home. For the most part, that's what I've seen here in Georgia. And I know that's, you know, my fellow critic friends here, that's our mentality with it. But I do think, because of the nature of us spending so much time at home these days, you know, we're looking for more content to consume. We're looking for something a little bit different, because to your point of what you said earlier about, you know, kind of getting burnt out on some of these, even comic book movies. I mean, I'm a huge comic book nerd. I will be the first in line for Wonder Woman 1983 or 1984. I'm hoping I'm going to get a digital screener for it. I'm still going to go see all of those, but I absolutely hear, people when they say, you know, maybe we just need to like hit pause for a minute on some of the comic book films. Because what happens, you know, Hollywood goes through these cycles of where they do something and then they just keep doing it because it's successful. And then you have this giant void of time that will come where you don't get any of it. You know, you see that a lot in kind of genre programming, where it's like all vampires, all zombies, all aliens. Then we go back around in a full cycle again. And I'm still worried that's what's going to happen with comic books at some point. I hope not. I hope that's just me being paranoid. But I do think that there is a really great place for independent content right now. And even independent comic books being able to be adapted into indie films that don't kind of follow the traditional superhero kind of storylines that we're so used to. I think there's a really great opportunity for that right now. And to your point, with COVID restrictions on filming, it's a lot easier to produce indie content right now. And people are looking for it. You know, you don't have the movies or the production companies being able to pump out these big blockbusters as quickly right now. So there's opportunity right now for independent content creators.
The other question I've been asking people, and maybe you have some insight on this as well, is like, so you're a filmmaker, right? You're a filmmaker, you're creating TV shows, whatever it is you want to create. One of the things that creators are asking themselves right now is, do I somehow incorporate this culture of COVID into my movie? And like, what do I do if I don't? I actually got an email from somebody saying, hey, do you have footage of Brooklyn in this neighborhood pre-COVID. We're trying to put a piece in flashback, and we don't want to have people wearing masks. So how do you do that? Do you think that's something? Do you think do you want to see that in a movie? Do you not want to see that in the movie? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting stories that come out of 2020. Oh, and, that's not really, granted, I've seen a couple of kind of Zoom indie things that have been made this year. But aside from that, no one has really tackled this year yet. I think we're all going to need a bit of a breather from 2020 once this is over, hopefully sometime in the near future. But I do think that there's an opportunity to really tell some amazing stories of, what happened this year in so many regards, not only with the pandemic. We had, the most hurricanes ever. This crazy political climate that we're in, so many personal stories, people that got sick and lost loved ones and lost jobs, and, so much just kind of devastation really this year. I think there's a lot of great art that's going to come from that. And I definitely want to see it. That being said, what I'm looking for right now is more so things that take me completely away from 2020. Like, give me a comedy. I don't want to see anyone wearing a mask. I just want to laugh and escape and pretend that this is not the year that it is right now.
I am so with you. I actually had somebody on the show, and she was talking about a movie she had written that was a sort of COVID era romance type of thing, like Love in the Time of COVID, which I knew was going to be somebody's title. But she said, if you were scrolling through your Netflix queue and you saw that, would you want to see that? And I'm like, no, I don't want. I said, no offense, it's probably brilliant. Your screenplay is wonderful, but I do not want to see that movie right now because I can see it out my window. And if nobody says coronavirus, or if I don't see anybody wearing masks for, I don't know, the rest of my life at this point, I'll be fine. Also, with the political stuff, I know there's going to be a ton of Trump movies. I know there's going to be, we're going to see an All the President's Men type of surge. There'll probably be 1 billion of them by 2024. I don't want to see any of those either, because having lived through it. But, this is from a person who is, into media like you are and gets saturated by this stuff. And, you can't avoid it. It's everywhere. Like, you look through your YouTube queue, you look through, any sort of social media, it's everywhere. And I think you're absolutely right. We're going to need some break from it. And maybe that will benefit some of these movies that are holding back if they ever get a theatrical release. I mean, I'm sure if it was safe tomorrow and the vaccine came out and Wonder Woman 1984 hit, people would go out in droves, because I want to get out of the house, and B, I would love to see something set in the 80s that didn't have anything to do with the coronavirus, Donald Trump, or, any all the stuff that's happening now. But yeah, I think it's good. I think you're right. I think, I was talking to somebody on my last episode about, do you think we're going to see stories about, post-apocalypse or something where everybody has to wear hazmat suits because, you have to be masked on set, and except for the actors, usually all. But do you think you're going to incorporate that into other types of stories, post-apocalyptic devastation, which can also be fantastical and say something? But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't know if I want to see a COVID movie right away. For you, keeping your eye on this landscape, I would love to see, if we talk again in 6 months about this and see what's happening then. Do you see at this point, because all these different films are going to streaming now, studios are probably going to lose a lot of money. A feature like a Wonder Woman sequel, I think the first one made like $750 million. It was about $750 million, and I don't know if the next one winds up on like HBO Max or just goes to VOD. I think studios they're going to lose a ton of money. So it's like, do you think based on 20 and possibly most of 2021, do you think we're going to see the stoppage of productions like that and even studios pivoting to smaller fare?
I don't know. I mean, that's going to be really interesting to see, because I think, the other side of this is the movie theaters. And, are they going to make it through it? Are the AMC theaters and the Regal theaters going to be around in 2021? Because I mean, I think I want to say it was Universal that said they were just going to do, everything was going to be like direct to on demand for at least the rest of 2020. I'm not sure how that really affects their overall cost. I would imagine that it reduces some of their costs, so maybe that kind of offsets some of the loss of what they would be making, if they were doing the big blockbuster releases. They're not having to pay for these press junkets where they fly the actors around the world, and things like that, where it is all digital. So it's maybe you're not spending as much money on billboards, or you're not spending as much money on advertisements. You're just doing digital campaigns. I feel like there's a lot of like cost that's getting offset there as well. I don't know what that looks like in comparison to the financials of it all, but I do think that there's going to be kind of a surge of, I don't want to say lower budget movies. I think there's going to be a reduction of some of the big blockbuster movies that haven't already been made and aren't already being held for us to see. Because the reality is, when everything does come back in full force, there's a lot of content that we're going to be bombarded with, because there's so much stuff that was supposed to come out this year. There was so many movies in March that were scheduled for a press screening here in Atlanta right before they just got shut down. We weren't going to have any more press screenings. We weren't going to, they were just going to hold all of those movies, and they just kind of continually kept pushing them. So I don't know. I feel like there's just going to be so much content when all of this comes back that it's going to more than make up for the lull of time that content wasn't being created by the bigger studios.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because, a lot of those marketing budgets are about what the budget of the movie is. So you spend 150 mil on the movie, you got to spend another 150 mil on the advertising.
The promotion, yeah.
But it's well, at any rate, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be unusual. And you're right. There is a loaded cannon full of stuff right now that has not come out. That if movie studios if the theaters are still operational, there'll be plenty of movies to see. Anyway, I got to wrap up. For people who want to know more about you and about Fanbolt, where can they find you on the web?
Fanbolt.com is our site. And then, of course, Fanbolt on all social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good fun stuff. And, of course, me, I'm on all of those same social media sites, just at Emma Loggins.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This is insightful. I hope you can come back again, and we'll get more stuff from you. Maybe have you come on and review some movies with us. That would be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for coming, and we hope to have you back again soon. And that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including our movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Once again, I'd like to thank my guest, Emma Loggins, and I'd like to thank the good folks at JMR Rentals for sponsoring this episode. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.